Alrighty, so today we are now going to talk about Atlanta United in the Moving Forward series episode, and there's no doubt that it's been a disappointing season for Atlanta United. In fact, I think that's probably an understatement in terms of how this season has gone, and throughout the season, I've mentioned Atlanta probably have the most disappointing season that any MLS team has had because with all the expectation that this team put heading into this season, especially once again spending a lot in terms of trying to improve this team and also bring a former MLS Cup winning head coach in Ronnie Delia here, you would have thought that Atlanta is definitely back, but Atlanta is not back. And that I think you could also say that they're kind of the off-season champion as well. I mean, we always hear that phrase being thrown around in other leagues such as the NFL, MLB, and even the NHL of being the off-season champion. And usually when that happens, that usually doesn't mean it's a good thing. I mean, for people, they think that it might be a good thing, and sometimes I would say that there are times where teams maybe become the off-season champion. Maybe they'll do well, but more times or not, when that phrase is being thrown around, I've seen it leads to kind of a disappointing season, and that's why people kind of branded them as the off-season champion because of the amount that they spent. That turns out to be a huge bust throughout the season. Now that being said, so far this season for Atlanta United, 5-2-13 is the record, 27 points so far, which I think they're on course to potentially get the fewest amount of points that they've ever got in a 34 game season. Obviously, I remember a couple of years in their the COVID shortened year, they also didn't do so well. But I'm not gonna count that year because it was a shortened season. The goals that they've scored so far this season, 37 goals scored while allowing 55 goals. Yeah, safe to say that both the attack and defense is a huge issue with this team, and they have a minus 18 goal differential. They're currently 13 in the Eastern Conference, and of course, they've already been eliminated from playoff contention. It's been a while since they've been eliminated from playoff contention. Well, actually, I say it's a while, but it's only been a couple of weeks since that game against Columbus, where yeah, they almost complete the greatest comeback we have ever seen in MLS history as well. So, looking at the top goal scorer of this team, and I cannot believe this is actually the top goal scorer. I had to double check on the Atlanta United website that Emmanuel Latelaf is actually leading the team with goal scoring. So with all this talk of the bust that he has, and to be fair, Latelaf he definitely looked good at least in the first couple of weeks of the season, and it feels like maybe Atlanta kind of got their money's worth in terms of signing him and be that next Joseph Martinez and Yakimakis kind of player, and yeah, that didn't turns out that was the case for the rest of the season either. He would only score one goal really in these last couple of months, and that one goal came from the penalty spot as well. Then you have Maranchuk with 6 goals, followed by TRA with 5 goals, Miguel Almiron with 5 goals, and Barton Schlick rounds up the top five with 2 goals. Top assist leader, you got Almiron and Lobjanidze tied with 7 assists, followed by Maranchuk with 4 assists, Brooks Lennon with 3 assists, and then Bartosz Schlick with 2 assists to round up the top five in terms of the assist leader. Best win of the season. I'm gonna go with the 4-2 win that they had against Cincinnati on May 25th. I mean, this was really the game that they kind of looked like the old Atlanta. I mean, this was a team that was playing very well. Now, albeit if you remember in that game, I mentioned the fact that Cincinnati they were down a couple of defenders, especially that was the game when Nick Hacklin got himself injured, and that really exposed that Cincy back line. But still, that Atlanta team that was probably the best that they play, and that was maybe kind of a sign that things were going to start turn around for this Atlanta team because up to this point they weren't playing relatively well either, and that with the attack seems like it started to get going again. It seems like maybe things were gonna go well, right? Well, no, because a couple of weeks later they had probably the worst loss of the season, losing 4-0 to NYCFC in a game where, especially in the second half, I mean, they just gave up in the second half. The way that NYCFC absolutely blitzed them in the second half like that, yeah, that was definitely not a loss that Atlanta United fans would want to remember. I would have also said that the worst loss of the season would have been just recently as well when they were playing against Columbus, where they were 5-0 down before we even hit halftime. But because of the comeback that they had, you can't really say that is the worst loss of the season. But you also can't say it's the best win of the season as well because they didn't win that game. That is. Now, in terms of the average attendance, 43,985. They still lead the league in terms of attendance, though that number is getting more and more misleading because when you look at games at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it is getting to the point where you see a lot of red empty seats, and there are games where even though they announce the attendance like 40,000 plus, I mean, those attendants are definitely skew in a big way. And keep in mind, when it comes to attendance number that is being measured, it's pay attendance that MLS of course measure. It's not the butts in the seats or the people that go through the gate. It's the pay attendance, which means that you're obviously going to have the season ticket holder that is going to count in terms of the attendance, whether they show up or not. And then you got, of course, the rest of it because Atlanta has such a big season ticket kind of group. That's why the attendance might be fluctuated in a big way, even though you can see in most of the games nowadays at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, you would have been absolutely lucky to say that there might be even 20,000 or even 15,000 or so. I mean, it feels like Mercedes-Benz Stadium, even with the them not opening the upper deck at time, it feels like it's like half or even a quarter full. Because of the way Atlanta has played this season and really the last couple of years. The interest in terms of this team and the hype of this team has really lost its luster compared to what we saw in their first couple of years, where that was when the hype was really at an all-time high for this Atlanta United franchise. Now, looking at MVP of this team, I mean, you can't really think of an MVP of this team, can you? There's really nobody on this team you can say that really delivered in a big way, and this is kind of a common theme when I talk about teams that did not do well this season, and that yeah, there's really kind of no sugarcoating that there's really no one on this team that really stands out as a real MVP. Disappointment. This is also another category that is tough, but not in a good way because there is a lot of players I could have gone in terms of disappointment. Could have gone with Maranchuk, who he has played a little bit better at least in the second half of the season because the first half of the season, man, oh man, you talk about a big bust in terms of the DP spot. Maruntuk is definitely approaching that, especially the way that he played in the first half of the season. He did kind of picked up a little bit in the second half of the season, but still nowhere near in terms of deep caliber in terms of the number. You could even say Miguel Almiron kind of had a disappointing season. I mean, this was a guy that was supposed to come back to Atlanta, the great reunion, and able to really carry the team like he did in his first couple of years under Joseph Martinez in that good partnership, and it just never really quite materialized. And even Saba Lobjanitsa, a guy that had an incredible season last year, had a breakout season, and even though he has been one of the best assist player on this team, yeah, that's not really his specialty. His specialty is more in terms of the goal scoring department, and it just have not really quite shown out whatsoever. I could even gone with the defense too, and maybe even put Brooks Lennon as well on this list. I mean, talk about a huge disappointment. I mean, the Lennon signing, I think Atlanta United absolutely regret right now. It's kind of hard to believe that he's actually still with this team right now, and the fact that the amount that they of course pay him, that is a really bad contract compared to the quality that he does bring to this team, which is pretty much next to none. But at the end of the day, with all those players I mentioned as disappointment, I gotta go with Latte Laugh. I mean, I do feel bad for him at times in terms of the fact that we talk about number nines that just seems like are just completely snake bitten at times and just aren't able to put the ball into the back of the net when you go for a long dry spell, and that's kind of the case for Latte Laugh. I mean, the old saying goes, when you're a number nine and you can't put the ball into the back net, the goal just feels very small for you rather than very big. And I feel like that's kind of the case with Latte Live. I feel like his confidence was completely shot in the middle of the season. After a good start to the season, once he gone through that dry spell, your confidence is completely shot, and you just kind of sense that you were hoping that he can eventually snap out of it. And like I said, that penalty kick goal, you thought that might be one that he can snap out of it, but it just never really quite do so. I mean, it's just what a disappointing season it has to be made, and he is gonna go down as one of the biggest busts in MLS history if he doesn't turn things around. And as I'll talk about in just a bit heading into next season as well. I mean, Atlanta, they better hope that this attack, especially this $50 million attack that they of course got, would turn things around. Because if they don't turn things around, they could find themselves in the same situation as Toronto FC are currently finding themselves in. Now, in terms of revelation, believe it or not, there was actually a couple of decent candidates for this. Atlanta does produce some really good young talent player as well, especially from the academy. And we have seen a couple of guys that, of course, got chances for this Atlanta team. We have seen the likes of Noah Cobb, who's now with Colorado, though he's only on a per, permanent loan. He's there, and he's definitely had some potential. We also see Luke Brennan getting his chances for this Atlanta team from the academy, and then most recently we've been seeing Will Riley been getting a lot of minutes for this Atlanta team as well. But I think the real revelation out of those players compared to this guy that I'll mention that I think could be decent for this team coming out of the Atlanta Academy has to be a Johnny J Fortune, and it's so unfortunate the fact that he had his season-ending in injury near the middle of the season because he was one of the better bright spot that this Atlanta team has, and especially he was definitely one of the better players from this underperforming roster, and that injury that he suffered, that hopefully that does not keep him from having a little bit of a setback when it comes to his career. I mean, usually when young guys suffer a brutal injury, they might be able to come back stronger heading into next season. Though that, of course, is not always a guarantee, and we'll just hope that of course, is the case with a Johnny J Fortune, who really shown some great ability when he was on the pitch this season, and he definitely would be coming close to living to his potential if he didn't have that serious injury that kind of doomed him in the middle of the season. So what went right for this Atlanta United team? So yeah, again, anytime when you talk about teams that are not doing very well, and especially I mentioned this is probably the most disappointing team this season in MLS, it is very hard to find what went right, and I'm gonna have to kind of cherry pick a little bit. They still lead the league in terms of the attendance, so I guess that they have that available. But in truth, I think the one bright side you gotta say for this Atlanta team is actually their goalkeeping situation. So obviously we knew that Brad Guzan, it feels like his time was with Atlanta United is just kind of winding down. I mean, these last 2 seasons or so. I mean, he has kind of shown times where he kind of decided to turn the clock back and started to show why he is one of the more elite goalkeeper, not only in MLS but something that the U.S. of course had. But unfortunately, you know the old saying with Father Time, it's undefeated, and it feels like it is definitely catching up with Brad Guzan, especially he's kind of near that stage of the Tim Howard stage, at least in the second year with the Rapids, where by that second year when Tim Howard was with the Rapids, he was just completely washed. So they decided to give this youngster Jaden Hebert coming out of the academy as well some reps, and I'll tell you what, in his limited amount of times that he's been with Atlanta, I've been very impressed with this kid. I mean, yes, I know that he has at times made some mistakes on in terms of his spot, but that's expected. I mean, when you have such a young goalkeeper like that, I think he's only like 22 if I'm not mistaken. I might be completely wrong, he might be even younger than that, but for a young goalkeeper like that and have already shown some maturity so far, and also making some big save at times in these last couple of games. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that of all the question of who exactly is going to be the replacement for Brad Grazan, that it just kind of came right under their nose in terms of their academy. So that's kind of something that we have seen before, where teams where there's always the talk of, oh, how are we going to replace our legendary goalkeeper who is getting old and started to be washed up. Well, sometimes why not just look into the academy and look into the MLS Next Pro level, because there's definitely some really good goalkeeper in the MLS Next Pro level, or even from your own academy. And Jaden Hebert played very well with Atlanta United too, and now he's getting his chance in terms of the starting spot for the main team. And he's taking full advantage of it, and I would not be surprised he might be the starting goalkeeper heading into next season as well as he continued to develop. So what went wrong for this Atlanta team? Yeah, everything went wrong with this team. It was an absolute mess in the attack, midfield, and defense. I think the other thing you could also say that went wrong with this team had absolutely no identity. So usually when we see good teams, they usually have like an identity and usually kind of have a purpose of what kind of team that they are. This Atlanta team, I can't really find any identity. I mean, it's an absolute mess from top to bottom. The attack is relatively weak. The midfield is very disorganized. The defense also at times is bad, and when you have all that combination, it's no wonder why this team has no identity, and Ronnie Delia has no idea how to forge an identity and actually forge his tactics into this team. And then, of course, I mentioned the $50 million attack turned out to be one of the biggest busts in recent MLS history. Pretty much, that attack that they build up, none of them really contributed, and pretty much all of them underperform what they were expected to do heading into this season. And then, lastly, the question with Ronnie DLM, he really lost the plot with his team relatively quickly. And this is probably one of the more surprising things because I thought with him going to Atlanta, that was going to be a great fit for him, especially with the way that he has that pedigree of winning, especially during his time with NYCFC, and the fact that he's going to institute a more possession style of play, something that we've seen with previous Atlanta team has done. I thought this was kind of a good hiring compared to the some of the recent hiring that they of course had, but it just turns out to not work whatsoever. I mean, he really kind of lost the plot and in some way kind of lost the locker room a bit. You can clearly see there's times in these last couple of games and really these last month or two, this team is clearly not playing for Ronnie Delia, and that's kind of getting to a point where you're just saying that are they going to potentially fire him? I think the reason why they haven't really quite fired him is because Atlanta want to at least have some stability in terms of the head coaching job. I mean, it's been a coaching carousel in this Atlanta team ever since Tatama, left this team. No head coach have been able to stay with this Atlanta team for more than 2 seasons. So I guess maybe that is the reason why they're giving Ronnie Daly a little bit more times. But then again, it also kind of doesn't help the fact that this fan base, you can clearly see they're getting fed up with the team and also Ronnie Daly has. And this team used to be a team that always have the highest pressure when it comes to head coach coming in, where you have high expectation. If you don't meet him, you're going to be out of the door relatively quick. So and I also could think that maybe it's because of the new front office as well. Garth Lagerway is kind of a guy that doesn't usually fire head coach relatively quickly. He usually are a little bit patient when it comes to some of the head coach. Maybe that's also kind of the reason why Dahlia is still has a job, but we'll see whether or not if he will have that job by the end of the season, because with such an underachieving season like that, it is kind of hard to see Ronnie Daly potentially is going to be the head coach of Atlanta United next season. Though I say that about Caleb Porter last season, and look what happened. Caleb Porter survive and get a second chance as well, which obviously that didn't quite work so well for him with New England, as we'll talk about them in the moving forward series a little bit later on. Now, moving forward, speaking of Garth Largaway, I just want to say I wish him the best, and also certainly wish him a speedy recovery in terms of the cancer that he got diagnosed and the battle that he's gone through. No one like to see someone, of course, diagnosed with cancer, and that yeah, anytime when that has happened, especially what Garth Largaway means not only to MLS but also the American landscape. This would be a huge loss. If the cancer that he's diagnosed might be a terminal one. I haven't heard a lot about what has happened, but the only thing that hurt so far is that he is battling, he is stepping away with the team for the foreseeable future. So yeah, we'll see whether or not once he does come back, he'll be able to be cancer free, because that's the only thing you want to see for such a legend to the American landscape and also to the MLS landscape as well. Hopefully, he'll have a great he'll have a great battle with cancer and able to defeat that as well. But the other moving forward thing that talk about this Atlanta team, there obviously is going to have to be some changes in terms of the coaching and front office. And as harsh as this might sound, maybe they might look at Garth Lagerway as well. The fact that he's kind of been giving time to build the roster, and he hasn't really quite done a good job in terms of it. Now, recently they did get a new sporting director in Chris Henderson, and it's not a big surprise. Henderson and Lagerway has partnered up with each other again. We saw it during his time with Seattle, and they were able to do a pretty successful team. Atlanta fans are hoping that of course, is the case, because Chris Henderson just joined this team last year. I don't think he's going to leave just yet, even though he hasn't really made some right signing to help this Atlanta team. But obviously, there's got to be some more changes, especially in the other front office department, and of course the coaching with Ronnie Del. We'll see whether or not if he will stay heading into next season. And then lastly, you better pray that the 50 million attack will live up to potential heading into next season. Obviously, as much as some Atlanta fans will say, why not just kind of blow up this team and basically go for a rebuild? Well, they can't, because when you look at the amount that they spent on the attack and the way that they locked all those guys in contract extension, this is why in the summer transfer window, when I talk about this Atlanta team, as much as the logical thing is for them to try to improve the attack, well, they really can't, because they're kind of a little bit hamstring because of the amount that they of course handed to these players that's supposed to be the core of the attack, and you don't want to sit some of these players as well, because that would really reflect bad in terms of the front office and also the salary si- situation. So the only thing that they could obviously do is try to at least fix the defense in some ways, and that might be something that they might also look into the off season as well. But again, the attack, it is obviously untouchable right now. That all these guys like Moronchuk, Almiron, Lav, and even Saba Lobjanidze, they're all locked up into contract heading into next season as well. And unless if they decide to exercise a buyout or so forth, there's really no way they can let go of some of those players. So they better hope that next year, because of this underwhelming season, maybe it's just kind of one of those seasons where everything just gone wrong. Maybe next season it might be different. Because if that is not the case, they're going to be in the situation that Toronto found themselves in. A situation that, with that Toronto team, with how bad that of the signings and contract that they, of course, gave up, that has really kind of set that franchise back in years. And you can start to see that they're just in the beginning process of cleaning things up, and that could be the same case for Atlanta as well. If that attack doesn't do well, it's going to be very hard to get that off of the book, and this will at least set the team back 2 or 3 years in terms of trying to be competitive and trying to make the necessary change on the attacking end. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at Atlanta United in the Moving Forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an Atlanta fan, what do you think is the thing that went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, heading into next season, how things are going to be different. Atlanta fans are hoping that it's going to be much different than this season, and maybe under a new head coach as well, because yeah, it's still kind of baffling of how they construct this team, and with all the personnel that we thought that they got it right, and it just gone completely wrong heading into this season as well. I think we need the starter to Atlanta in terms of trying to get themselves back to glory is to use the phrase Atlanta is back, because I feel like that phrase is basically now a curse phrase in this Atlanta franchise, because anytime when we mention that phrase, this team get put into to a setback that has really doomed this team to mediocrity, to being one of the worst team in the Eastern Conference for the past couple of years. But there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, and of course, we'll see you guys next time.